Happy Friday, and welcome back for a new episode of Toy Box Classics. Today, I'm going to finish the build exercise for my recreation of the classic Maze of Hearts toy box by Vault of Villains. Last time, I built the hedge maze down here, and the castle in the distance, and these castle walls. And since then, I have added all of the other plants and decorations, as you can see. And there's quite a lot here that I have done. I added all of these things offline because adding these things takes a lot of time. And you really don't need to see me place all of these things. It would make for a very boring video. You just need to see the end result. So as we get started, let me give you a quick look at what I have done since our previous episode. And for those of you who are following along with this build series and building this toy box on your own systems, feel free to pause this video along the way so that you can get a good look at the building pieces that I used and how they were placed, and that way you can copy what I have done. All right, let's start on this end of the toy box. And I have added in some terrain pieces behind our starting pad. All of these come out of the terrain category. This is the Winding Floating Bridge 1. A couple of those, followed by Small Bridge Cliff, followed by several of these curved floating bridges. And then we have the Floating Bridge Hill. And these are themed using the Alice's Wonderland theme. I'll show you that a little bit later. And then we just have a series of terrain blocks here, and terrain cubes, and these little terrain prisms, which make up a heart shaped here. A heart shape. And this is meant to kind of mimic the heart-shaped bushes of the Queen of Hearts castle. Okay, and this is themed using the same grass theme that we used over here last time. And again, if you don't have that theme, any grass theme will do. I recommended the Briar Ridge theme. Okay, and if you don't have the Alice's Wonderland terrain customization power disc, again, I'll talk about that later. All right, and then we have added in plant clusters through here, outside of the castle walls. And let me give you a quick look at what I have done. These are the first 9 pieces out of the plants drawer. Just notice how I've placed them. If you don't get these exactly the way I've got them here, that's okay. Do note the orientation of these, like with the little sprig there on the corner of that piece, and how I've rotated these pieces, because that's going to be important when we theme them. And I'll talk about that little stone path there in a moment. All right, and then we come up here, and after we place these pieces, we have some of these picket fence pieces. These are out of the decorations drawer. So we have a few of those with a gap for kind of a gateway, and then a few more. And a couple more over here. And then note the orientation of these plant clusters, how they're rotated, because again, that's going to be very important. You can look at the fern there on the corner of these. I'll try to give you a good look at this. These chairs are out of the decorations drawer. I've got them on both sides of what will be the Mad Hatter's table once we theme those. And then for the Mad Hatter's house, I'm using a couple of these Fantasyland stone bases out of Building Sets Group 4. Pick it up. There we go. With a Fantasyland straw roof. And the gable roof. And the fireplace chimney. Okay. Again, notice how those plants are all placed around there. The stone path is out of Building Sets Group 4. It's with the Pirates pieces. And I'm mostly using these longer pieces with a couple of small corner pieces. And one of these little pieces here kind of mixed in just to kind of break it up a little bit. And notice how I've rotated these two. So this is the same piece as that, just rotated 190 degrees. And this leads you right to the hedge maze. Okay. And then I got a couple of these small trees, customizable trees, planted on either side, just to make sure the player doesn't go wandering back through here. We want them to go into the maze. Okay, and that's everything out here. And hopefully you can pause that video along the way and see exactly how I place these pieces. And again, if you don't get it precise, it's okay. As long as you get it relatively close, you'll be good to go. Sticking with the plant clusters, let's look at the ones around the perimeter of the maze here. Mostly I'm using these Fantasy Terrain 3, these large trees. And you can kind of notice the sprigs that I'm putting in there. Notice they're kind of spaced apart. And again, if you don't get these precise, that's okay. When we theme these, they're going to be a tall tree that will provide a nice border around the perimeter of the maze. And notice they're back away from the wall a little bit, because these are going to get very big when we theme them. If you want to kind of know the spacing of these, they're about, let's see, might be easier to go grab a block here. So they're about 1.5 blocks away from the hedges. That's kind of where I put them. If you go 2 blocks, that's fine. But this is the spacing that I had on mine. And I rotated them counterclockwise every time I put a new one down. And then added a few others back over here. Okay, and then we get to this end of the maze. And then once again, 1.5 blocks from the edge of the maze all the way down. And then some of these spread out here with a couple of these back here. Okay. And then we'll go look at this side, and this kind of mirrors the other side, but not precisely. The spacing for these is about the same, not quite, but close. This one's back a little bit. But then from here I go same spacing all the way down till you get to the left edge of the heart. And then I got a few more trees sprinkled throughout here. And you don't need a lot of them. You're just giving the idea that behind this wall there are trees. And beyond the hedge maze, there's a forest. And then along this side of the maze, and then some more trees, and then these. Okay, and then around the perimeter of the rest of the toy box, we've got some of these trees spaced apart just to kind of provide a nice border. We got a few more of these, what will be larger trees back here along the back to provide a nice border for behind the castle. Just to show the world goes beyond the castle, but it also provides a nice border for the toy box. And notice they're not in a straight line, they're staggered a little bit. So you got some set back, some a little further forward. Okay, and then along this side, same kind of thing. And that gets you back up to here. And then on either side of the castle, we have those, which will become rose bushes. And then as you come out of the maze, I've got one of these large trees here. Notice the location of the sprig with some of these little flowers around the perimeter of the tree. Just kind of gives a nice focal point as you come out of the maze, something right in front of the castle. And a couple of party cannons back here, which we will talk about next time. Those are out of the gameplay toys. Alright, inside the maze. As you come into the maze, over here we have a couple of flowers. These are plush flowers. And it's important, I put these in here. These were not in the original toy box, most of the decorations in this maze. But I put them in here as landmarks to help the player make their way through the maze. And because they're landmarks, they don't repeat, and that's kind of important. So if you see these here, you do not see these anywhere else. Then you come up here with this long bit of hedge here, and in front of those I have placed these, which are also out of the decorations drawer. Those are the plush hearts, and I put a row of 4 of them. And as we make our way around the perimeter here, in this corner we have a flamingo. This is where one of the flamingo mallets goes. Pink flamingo too. That is right there, just to give you an overview of where that is. Up here we have the Sugar Rush Flag 1. In this little area here, I have Disney Infinity Bush 1. Again, to show you kind of where that is. We've got a decoration up here. This is out of Building Sets Group 1. This is the Treehouse Lantern. And then directly across from there is our second flamingo. Again, you find that in the decorations drawer. And then down this long corridor we have flags on either side of the arch going into this large area. These are out of Building Sets Group 7. It's Sugar Rush Flag 2. And a couple of more on either side of this. And I put the door in here from Gameplay Toys. This is the automatic double door. And we've placed a few other plant clusters in here. This is about 2 cubes away from the hedge. And that one's a little bit further than 2 cubes, but you get the idea. And another plant over here. Another plant cluster over here. And then on this side with the archway, a couple more of those Sugar Rush 2 flags. And then down here we have these little customizable plant clusters out of the plants drawer. And Over here is another bush. Okay. And then as we come back to the entrance here, we make our way up this direction for the maze. When we get up to this point, we have another Sugar Rush flag. This is Sugar Rush flag 3. And over here on the edge, we have our third bush that needs to be painted. Now just past that flag, we have 2 benches. We have this one. This is Fantasyland bench out of Building Sets Group 4. And we have another one at the other end of that. And if you follow this around the corner here, this is where you find our third flamingo. And then coming up here, we have another customizable plant cluster, and up here is our fourth flamingo. Okay, and that is, I believe, all of the decorations and everything that I have added and where I've put everything. Okay, now at this point, you are going to need the Alice's Wonderland Terrain Customization Power Disc, shown here. If you do not have this power disc, then you can use the toy dispenser to get it. And again, if you're not sure how to use the toy dispenser, go watch episode 111 of my Toy Box tutorial series. You find that in the Instant Fun category right here. Okay? Be aware that it will take you a while probably to get that terrain theme. Okay? And along the way, you may end up getting a different sky instead, because you don't know what you're going to get, whether it's a terrain theme or a sky. And if you get a sky that replaces this, then just exit the toy box without saving and reload it so that you can get the current sky back and try it again. Also, if you do use that toy dispenser, please be aware that when you do finally get the Alice's Wonderland terrain theme, it is going to change all of your terrain and all of the customizable plant clusters to be the Alice in Wonderland theme. And that's okay, but you're going to have to go back and restore the grass theme on the terrain blocks that we put down last time, which is just these large blocks here that all of that is sitting on. Okay? All right. And this is why having that physical power disc is so much easier, by the way. But of course, if you're on PC, then you don't need the physical disc. You just need to select this theme. Now, assuming that you use the toy dispenser, or even if you don't, let's come over here to one of these. And we want to select the Alice in Wonderland theme. And I believe, let's see, where is that theme? Oh, here it is. It's the Wonderland Terrain theme. I'm going to theme all. If you get this from the toy dispenser, this is what's going to happen to all of your plant clusters. And that's fine. And we're just going to let it go through and update everything. Okay? And this is what you get over here. Everything in this part of the toy box outside of the castle wall you want to be this theme anyway. So this gives you the nice Mad Hatter's tea table. You get the trees with the nice little party lanterns. You get these great trees with the little signs that say this way and that way. All of these big flowers. I mean, this just looks awesome. Okay? And these plant clusters here end up effectively blocking that entrance so you can't get behind the wall. And so that looks pretty decent. Now, for the trees going around the perimeter, obviously this is not going to work. And so what you're going to want to do is come into these And you're going to want to style these using the Briar Ridge theme. I will apply that. And that's going to give you these big trees. Okay? And so what you want to do is you want to go and change all of these around the perimeter of the maze. So to be that theme, you're going to do all of these, all of those. You're going to do the same thing on this side with all of these. These plant clusters here are going to end up being these, and so on. So you're going to change all of those to be Briar Ridge. Okay? And then around the perimeter back here, around the castle, you're going to change all of these to be the Briar Ridge theme as well. So everything outside of the maze that's not in front of the maze entrance is going to be Briar Ridge. So all of these, all of those, and all of those. Okay? With some exceptions. And your exceptions are these two plants here. Go ahead and leave those the way they are, because those are appropriate. And for this one, that's okay, but we're going to use the marble fountain. And I like that better. It just looks appropriate there. Okay, so that's what you're going to end up with. And then inside of the maze, for this little tree over here, I want to set this to be the Pixie Hollow theme. That gives you that hanging flower, which is kind of nice. These trees back over here that looked like little lampposts here, we're going to change those to use the San Francisco theme. And I'm using that theme because that lets you know, first of all, there's something back here. This entrance here into this little part of the maze is kind of narrow, and it's easy to miss. So these two trees here provide a nice contrast to let the player know, hey, there's something back here. Now these you can leave if you like. Nothing wrong with those. These two here with the rose bushes you definitely want to leave. But if you're on the console and you have the Through the Looking Glass terrain, you can use these instead. And that's what I chose to do. And if you don't like those, you can use the Incredibles trees. You can use the Scottish Highland trees. Any of those will do. Oops, that one. I just like those. So that's what I put in for my toy box. I wanted something a little bit different inside this middle area to set it off. All right, and I think that's all of the customizable plant clusters that are inside the maze. Okay. And when you finish changing all of those Briar Ridge trees, what you're going to end up with is this. And that looks pretty good, having the nice border around the maze. And with that, the build exercise for this toy box is done. Next time, I will show you how to hook up the logic for the mission to collect the flamingo mallets and to paint the roses red, as well as the enemy wave generators and the celebration at the end. Until then, I want to thank you for watching, and if you would like me to recreate more classic toy boxes like this, then hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know. That's all for me today. Have a great weekend.